For the price of 2 large pizzas, I paid 10,000 Bitcoin. At the time, it felt like a fair trade. And the crazy part is, even today, I honestly don't regret it. Welcome to Learn English with my story. Today, you'll hear a real story, told from the perspective of the person who lived it, and along the way, we'll learn some natural English together. Let's begin. My name is Laszlo Hanyecz. Back in 2010, I was a programmer living in Jacksonville, Florida. I was fascinated by a new digital currency called Bitcoin. It was a very small community back then, just a handful of us geeks and tech guys who were interested in the idea. For me, it was more of a hobby, something fun to play around with. I had a powerful computer, so I was able to mine a lot of Bitcoin. Every day, my computer would solve these complex puzzles, and as a reward, I would get new Bitcoins. They were just accumulating in my digital wallet, thousands of them. But there was a problem. They weren't real. You couldn't do anything with them. They were just numbers on a screen. I started to wonder if we could change that. I wanted to see if I could use Bitcoin to buy something tangible. The word tangible means something that is real and can be touched or felt. For example, I prefer tangible gifts like books rather than digital ones. So I had to come up with an idea. To come up with something is a common phrasal verb. It means to think of or create an idea or a plan. For example, she came up with a great idea for the party. What's something that everyone understands? Something simple that you can get delivered to your house. Pizza. That was it. I decided I wanted to buy pizza with Bitcoin. It seemed like the perfect test. It was a simple goal, but it felt incredibly important. If I could do this, it would be a proof of concept. A proof of concept is evidence that shows an idea or theory is possible to do in the real world. For example, the small-scale model was a successful proof of concept for the new building design. On May 18, 2010, I went to a popular online forum for Bitcoin enthusiasts. I wrote a post. It was very direct. I said, "I'll pay 10,000 Bitcoins for a couple of pizzas. Like maybe 2 large ones so I have some left over for the next day. I like things like onions, peppers, sausage, pepperoni, mushrooms, just standard stuff. No weird fish toppings or anything like that." I made it clear that the person would have to order the pizza, have it delivered to my house, and I would send them the 10,000 Bitcoins. To be honest, I was a bit skeptical. Skeptical means you have doubts about something and you are not sure if it is true or will happen. For example, he was skeptical about the news story until he saw the evidence. I really didn't know if anyone would take me up on the offer. To take someone up on something is another phrasal verb. It means to accept an offer that someone has made. For example, my friend offered me a ticket to the concert, and I took him up on it. For a few days, nothing happened. People on the forum were talking about it. Some thought it was a cool idea. Others said 10,000 Bitcoins was way too much money. At the time, its value was practically zero, maybe around $40 in total. But nobody was actually doing anything. I started to think maybe it was a silly idea, and I should just give up. To give up means to stop trying to do something, often because it is too difficult. For example, the puzzle was too hard, so I decided to give up. But I decided to wait a little longer. This was more than just a pizza to me. It was about making Bitcoin real. Then, after 4 days, I got a message. It was from a 19-year-old guy in the United Kingdom named Jeremy Sturdivant. His username on the forum was Jerkos. He said he was interested and thought he could help me out. To help out is a phrasal verb that means to assist someone, especially when they are busy or have a problem. For example, "Can you help me out with these heavy bags?" We exchanged a few messages. He was in the UK and I was in Florida, so he couldn't just order a pizza from his local shop. He had to call a Papa John's pizza place in my city, Jacksonville, and pay for it over the phone with his credit card. It was a bit complicated, but he was willing to go through with it. To go through with something means to do something that you have planned or promised to do, even if it is difficult or you have doubts. For example, even though she was nervous, she decided to go through with the presentation. The moment arrived on May 22nd. Jeremy told me he was ready. He was going to call the pizza place. I was sitting at my computer, waiting. It was a strange feeling. I was about to transfer a huge amount of this digital currency to a stranger I'd never met. It was a bit of a gamble. A bit of a gamble is an expression. It means a situation that is risky and where the result is not certain. For example, starting a new business is always a bit of a gamble. He confirmed that he had placed the order. The pizzas were on their way. Now it was my turn. I opened my Bitcoin wallet. I put in his address and the amount. 10,000. I remember pausing for a second before I clicked send. I was holding my breath. To hold one's breath is an idiom. It can mean to literally stop breathing for a moment, but we also use it to say that you are waiting for something to happen and you feel very anxious or excited. For example, I was holding my breath as they announced the winner. Then I clicked. The transaction was sent. The 10,000 bitcoins left my wallet. Now all I could do was wait and trust that a stranger on the internet would keep his promise. There was no way to reverse the transaction. If the pizzas didn't show up, my bitcoins were gone forever. An hour passed. I was getting a little nervous. I kept looking out the window. My kids were young and they were excited about the pizza, but they didn't really understand what was happening. To them, it was just a normal evening. For me, it felt like a historic moment. Finally, I heard the doorbell ring. My heart beat a little faster. I went to the door, and there he was. A delivery guy from Papa John's holding 2 big pizza boxes. It had actually worked. I felt this huge sense of relief. A sense of relief is a common collocation. It's the feeling of happiness and relaxation you get when something unpleasant has ended or has not happened. For example, I felt a great sense of relief after I finished my exam. I paid the delivery guy a tip in cash, of course, and brought the pizzas inside. They smelled amazing. One was a supreme. The other was a pepperoni. I took a picture of them to capture the moment. My daughter was in the background, reaching for a slice. To capture the moment is a collocation meaning to record or photograph an important event or feeling so that you can remember it. For example, I wanted to capture the moment, so I took a lot of photos at the wedding. I immediately went back to the forum and posted the picture. I wrote, "I just want to report that I successfully traded 10,000 bitcoins for pizza." The community was ecstatic. People were congratulating me. It was the first time Bitcoin had been used to buy a physical product. We had made a connection between the digital world and the real world. We had achieved our goal. At that time, nobody was thinking about the future value. We were just celebrating this milestone. A milestone is a very important event in the development or history of something. For example, graduating from university was a huge milestone in my life. In the weeks and months that followed, things started to change. The price of Bitcoin began to creep up. First, it was a few cents. Then it reached $1, then $10. People on the forums started messaging me. Hey Laszlo, those pizzas are now worth $100,000. Do you regret it? A few years later, they were worth millions. And my answer was always the same. No, I don't regret it. You have to look back at the situation in 2010. To look back is a phrasal verb that means to think about something that happened in the past. For example, when I look back on my childhood, I have many happy memories. Back then, those bitcoins had no real value. They were a fun experiment. The goal was to prove that Bitcoin could work as a currency. Someone had to be the first one to spend it. Someone had to kick things off. To kick things off is an informal expression. It means to start something, like a meeting, an event, or a process. For example, let's kick things off with a quick introduction from everyone. If I hadn't bought those pizzas, maybe someone else would have bought something else. But I was the one who did it. And that transaction gave Bitcoin a real-world value for the first time. It started the whole process. In hindsight, it was the right decision for the development of the technology. In hindsight is an expression we use when we understand a situation or event only after it has happened. For example, in hindsight, I should have studied harder for the test. Of course, when you hear that I paid what is now hundreds of millions of dollars for 2 pizzas, it sounds insane. And yes, I could be an incredibly wealthy man today if I had saved those bitcoins. But that's not the point. I was a pioneer. A pioneer is one of the first people to do something new, like explore a new area or develop a new technology. For example, Marie Curie was a pioneer in the field of radioactivity. I was there at the very beginning of something that would change the world. And for me, that's more valuable than the money. I got to be a part of history. And I got free pizza. So, when people ask if I regret it, I just tell them the story. The story of the Bitcoin pizza guy. And honestly, it's a pretty good story to tell. That was a fascinating look into a moment that changed cryptocurrency forever. It reminds us that the value of an action isn't always measured in money, but in the impact it has on the future. If you enjoy learning English through fascinating real stories like this one, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. We explore incredible true stories and crime cases every week to help you master the English language. We can't wait to share the next story with you.